Welcome back to the Cottage Goth Library. I'm Lunacha, or Luna for short, and in today's video I'm going to talk about all the books that I read during my Easter break. The thing about Easter in Norway is that we have quite a few public holidays, so I had a whole 5 days off of work, and I also had like a short work day on the Wednesday before Easter, like long weekend, I guess. And there is also a big tradition of reading crime during Easter here in Norway, so I was really influenced, I guess, to read crime. So that's what I did, and I read 5 crime books, 4 of them by the same author, and then there was another one that was not by that author. But let's get into the books. The first book I read was Skjebnesteinen, which refers to Stone of Scone in Scotland, and this takes place, well, not just in Scotland, but it's kind of the start off with a young woman, a Norwegian, that gets abducted, and she's found floating in a river like the day after, like 24 hours after. Turns out that this young woman is Amandi, who is the niece of Harinder Singh, which is a Kripos detective, or whatever you call it. Kripos is kind of like the equivalent of Scotland Yard in the UK, I guess. And he is family, and he's like a really good detective. Therefore, he's not supposed to be involved in the case, but of course he can't help himself, and he has to meddle into things. Not too popular with the Scottish police detectives, but he feels like he has to do what he has to do, so of course he kind of meddles with the case, and his case is bigger than he thought, and there are twists and turns as well in this book, but I really enjoyed it. It's a really well-written Norwegian crime book. It's part like a Nordic Noir. So I read this. It's a Norwegian author, probably not translated into the English as far as I know, but I really enjoyed it, and it's the second book in the series, so I'm not going to say too much about it because I'm worried it'll spoil. But I really enjoy these books by Sven Næss. I read the first one a couple of years ago, also during Easter. It was called Den stille uke, the silent week, which is like referring to Easter. So it was very fitting at the time, and I've been meaning to read this for a very long time, and or since then. Not very long time. 2 years isn't that long, to be honest with you, but yeah, I've been meaning to read this since I've read the first one, and I'm very happy I picked it up because I really enjoyed it. Since I really enjoyed the 2 first books in the series, I found out that I wanted to read the 3rd book in the series, and that is Skyldig, or Guilty. And this book is about Helene Vårder. Helene Vårder. She has been in prison for the last 18 years for killing her father and stepmother, and the whole time she has been refusing she's guilty, but everybody thinks she was guilty, and everybody kind of blames her, and she was like into drugs when it happened. She was like very young. I think she was like in her early 20s or late teens or something, and so everybody's like thinking she's guilty because the evidence all points to her being guilty. Harinder Singh has been on sick leave for a while, and then he kind of finds out about this case, and he starts looking into it because this has all taken place in where he comes from, where he grew up. He's not too crazy about this place, but he kind of starts digging and finds that the detective work that was done 18 years ago maybe had some weaknesses, to say the least. And that, of course, gets him into trouble, and also there's a lot of other things going on. Another good read. I really enjoyed this as well, and I don't feel like I can say a lot because, you know, it's a part of a series, and of course that led me to pick up yet another book in the series. Passasjeren, or The Passenger, is then the fourth book in the series, and this is about a guy. His name is Carl Kolstad, and he is the gangster turned businessman, and he has started his own taxi firm. The police has been kind of eyeing him because of he's a bit suspicious, to be honest with you, and also what he did in his like earlier life. That wasn't nice, but he says I'm good now. It's all good. And then he actually is also trying to come across as this really kind of good guy by also being connected to his business in the way of being a chauffeur, a taxi driver. So he actually does drive the taxi like a couple of times a week, or at least once a week or something. And then there is this early morning where he picks up a passenger, and it turns out that this will be his last taxi drive in his life. And I'm going to leave it at that, because this is when everything kind of starts. And of course, Harinder Singh is the detective in this story. He has lost his, well, not lost his job, but he's left Kripos. He didn't get very popular from meddling in the previous case, which was in the previous book. This is not a big secret. And he's back with the Oslo police as a regular detective and starts to look into this case and finds things, and things are not quite as they seem, so to say. So I've enjoyed this as well, of course. And since I read that on the train and on my way to Gjøvik, I didn't have the next book in the series because I haven't borrowed that at the library, because I've read them a lot faster than I thought I would. But fortunately, I had this book with me, which is also a crime book, and it's called Silvervägen, or The Silver Road, by Stina Jackson. It's a Swedish crime author, and it's a Swedish crime book, and it was written in Swedish, so I read it in Swedish. This is about a young girl, or a young woman. I think she was like 17 when she disappeared 3 years ago, and her father is trying to find her. So he drives along this road called the Silver Road, Silvervägen, and he is desperately trying to find his daughter, and that's pretty much what his life is at the moment. And then you have another story about a young woman who moves to this part of Sweden. It's set in the very north of Sweden. She and her mom moves to a really kind of a strange man, and to settle there. And then she meets a boy and falls in love, and his family, the boy's family, is kind of weird in many ways, but she's very much in love with him. And I'm going to not say anything else because that will spoil the story, but things are not as they seem, as per usual with crime stories. I really like this book, not just because of the story, but I thought the language was really good. It was at times kind of poetic, actually, which I don't really see very often in crime books, but I really enjoyed it. And I also like the whole northern Swedish setting, so really enjoyed this. And the last but not least, this should not come as a surprise now, this is the 5th book in the Harinder Singh crime series, and this is not the latest one, but this is the last book that I read for my Easter reads. As I said earlier, there was this niece of his that was abducted in a previous book, but she was found and like she kind of returned to Norway, but that was 4 years ago, and she then disappeared shortly after coming back to Norway, and she has not been seen since, and they have not heard from her since either. So after 4 years, when a box full of her things, of her property, arrives at her parents' house, it's very curious, and they kind of started wondering, where is she and why has that box arrived? At the same time, there is this celebrity lawyer who is shot and killed, as well as another seemingly innocent guy who happens just to be there at the point. So they are shot, and they're trying to look into this case and if there are any connections. And of course, Harinder Singh is the officer, the officer who's going to try to solve the case of the killed lawyer. But when there seems to be an involvement of his niece, he is taken off the case, and he's not supposed to do any detective work. But of course, knowing Harinder Singh, that's not happening. So it takes off, and yeah, I really enjoyed this book as well. I keep saying I really enjoy this book. You're probably sick of me saying I enjoy this book, because that seems to be the only thing I can say at the moment. But it was a good book and good read, and there is a new book that has come out recently, and of course I could put my name on the waitlist, but I'm going to leave it at that, and maybe next year I'll read it for my Easter reads next year. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. That's what I read during my Easter break. And have you read any of these? I don't know if the Swedish book has been translated into English. I know it has been translated into Norwegian, Silvervägen, but other than that, I have no clue. So with that, I am leaving you, and I will see you in my next video, whenever that will be. Bye!